Good morning student, how are you all? I believe all of you are keeping well at home. So today we are going to read about the first chapter of the 10th class and from the book called The Footprints. Okay, the first lesson is written by James Halliot called The Triumph of Surgery. What do you mean by triumph? Triumph means victory. Okay. And before we get into the lesson, let's read some of the word meaning which seems to be difficult for you. So first of all, word called convalescing. Okay, what do you mean by convalescing? Is recovering from illness. Okay, recovery from illness. Okay. Second thing called tottering. Tottering means what? Giving a push to the animals. At time when an animal is having a slow walk, we just give a push, okay, and it started running fast. That is called tottering. What do you mean by lumbago? Lumbago is a kind of a backache someone is having. Okay. Then last word we have shepherd. Shepherd is the one is called hired driver. Okay. So these are the words which seems to be little complicated in your lesson. So today we are going to read about this lesson called The Triumph of Surgery. Now we have three more characters here. Mrs. Pumphrey, this is the owner of a dog. What is the name of the dog? That his name is Tricky. And the third person is called Mr. Harriot, the author himself. Okay, so this story is revolving around a one person, okay, whose name is Tricky. So what happens to a Tricky? Tricky has been a full-fledged fat dog which is being fed by, in the recent time, Mrs. Pumphrey. Okay, she has been feeding it time and again since it was having a weak health, and it turned out to be worse for the dog. Okay, now dog has become lazy, sluggish, and Mrs. Pumphrey is very worried about her because these days it does not go and run. Okay, so that's why she's come across by a person called Mr. Harriot. Noticing that Mr. Pumphrey is very worried for the dog called Tricky, Mr. Harriot thought of helping her. So he takes this dog to the particular place where the dogs are being, and treated. Okay, and in these 2-3 couple of weeks, the dog turns to be a healthy dog. Okay, so how does this story goes on? It's that one fine day, Mr. Pumphrey is seen with his dog Tricky, okay, and it is being noticed by Mr. Harriot. Mr. Harriot, as he sees the Mrs. Pumphrey and the dog location seems to be very worse. It has become a fat like a sausage, okay, and his tongue is lowered out, colon is dropping out from his mouth, okay, and Mrs. Pumphrey is explaining everything to Mr. Harriot that in the previous time the dog has been very weak, so due to which she has been feeding it time and again, and now it turned to be a fat dog, and these days it does not walk even. Okay, so seeing the pathetic condition of Tricky and the gloomy face of Mrs. Pumphrey, the owner of that dog, Mr. Harriot thought of helping her. Okay, so Mr. Harriot takes away this Tricky dog, Tricky, okay, the dog to the particular hospital where the dogs are being treated, okay, and there he noticed with the Tricky, okay, that it is not running and all that. So what did he do? He makes her to drink water almost 2 days, which makes the Tricky little more comfortable, little more perfect, little more healthy. At the same time, okay, usually there is a turn is given to the dogs to feed to take their feed or take their food. If they are not going to their particular place, they have to compete each other. For example, if it is becoming complicated for you, there certain bowls are kept before the dogs according to their names. Okay, as the food is put on that boxes, okay, they have to come and eat it. But at times when they are getting late to eat from their own bowl, the other dogs come in front before the particular dog. Okay, so they have to fight with each other which the dog has to eat it. Okay, the first day when this activity is done by the Tricky, she could not be able to compete with any of the dogs, right? Because first of all her bowl was his bowl was not kept there. Okay, and lately when the old dogs had their food, only the little part what was left in each bowl she started eating, and the next day she was little more healthier, she was little more active, and she came up and had his food in the bowl. So likewise he did a lot of tricks for her, and she started playing, howling and running with along others dogs, and actually that made the Tricky to be little active. So far the Tricky has been changing himself or herself as a dog and becoming a little and thinner. Meanwhile the condition of Mrs. Pumphrey was getting worse. She was waiting all the time, waiting for that particular dog to become back and stay with her. Okay, so how did Tricky got to be a fat dog? Because in the morning Mrs. Pumphrey started feeding her with 2 boiled eggs. Later she started giving wine in the afternoon, and at the night brandy. So such a lavishly and luxurious food was provided to the Tricky, okay, the dog. That's why she became little more fatter than the usual dog, and that's made Tricky little more sluggish, little more unhealthy. So in the same, with the help of Mr. Harriot, the Tricky learned to made himself or herself little more thinner, okay, by doing all those activities, right? And at the end, what happened? There was words were sent to whom? To Mrs. Pumphrey, okay, as she came with the car, okay. So Mr. Harriot told, you need not have to come out, I myself will bring that dog for you. And looking at the new fitness of the Tricky, Mrs. Pumphrey was very happy, and she said she can't repay back the help that was given by Mr. Harriot. And that's why this lesson is called The Triumph of Surgery. Hope you enjoyed the video and understood it well. Thank you.